Now this is something a bit different, but I think it's worth going over. And if you notice, we're here in Illustrator. So here in Illustrator, we're going to talk about the gradient mesh tool. So what I have here is actually a piece of Illustrator art, and it is, yes, you can tell, a banana. So if I click on it, you can see the mesh parts here. So the question is how to build something like this. And there's also a little extra one right up there, a little piece for the stem and one for the banana. And one thing I would suggest is that if you're building something using the gradient mesh, there's a lot of stuff you can control with it, and it is really nice. But you also want to take a look at your artwork and kind of divide it up. Approach it with a bit of a strategy and see how you can section parts up. And a good way to do that is based on differences in color or shape. Since there's a bit of a different color here, I've made this a second mesh path. So I want to show you something that is a bit surprising here. I'm going to turn on a photo layer. There we go. So this is a photographic layer right here. Just a photo of some bananas that I brought in to trace over and do this bit of artwork. So if you look at the curve here, it's this really nice curve. And for me, the obvious thing that I would think of to make nice curved shapes like this is the pen tool. So for example, if you were building this and doing a simplified sort of flat art version of it, the pen tool really is the way you'd want to go. So I'm going to show you what happens. I'm going to make a brand new layer here, and I'm going to get the pen tool. And remembering, I'll zoom in here a bit. My rules for loving the pen tool. Number one is use as few points as possible. And number two is don't worry about your path being perfect while you make it, because you can always go back and fix it after you're done. In fact, often it's easier to do it that way. So I would say start here and click and drag to get a nice curve with my Bezier handle. And as I want to come here, maybe sort of the middle part of the curve, I'm going to click and drag until I get that looking nice. Okay, and then come to the end here, and click and drag right there, and then over here, click and drag. And I made one little mistake I see, and that's that I have a fill here in my my shape, which is going to make it a little harder to see things, but I can deal with that. So come up here. Yeah, I'll come to about here. See, I can really control that curve there. And we'll come up to the top like that. Well, it didn't quite work. And there. And we'll join it up right here. There we go. So just to make things easy, let's take this shape, give it a bit of a stroke so I can see what's going on, and make the fill to be none. There we go. So I'm doing a little bit of quick point editing here with the direct select tool. There we go. You want to take and move the points around, kind of get them where they need to be, because there's a bit of a change in direction right here. I want to move this handle separately from the other, and for that I would click on that point so I can see both handles. I'll come here and right click on the pen tool and get the anchor point tool, or the convert tool really is what it is, and kind of adjust it like that. I'm going to go back to the direct select tool and see I'm getting a pretty good shape going here. Now it doesn't have to be perfect, of course, but you can kind of fine tune this, kind of make it happen there. I'll move this one over here a little bit. So notice how you can just very easily, after you've built the path with the pen tool, you can just very easily adjust it there and make any little corrections that you need to. So this is really kind of where you want to get in and do this. You don't have to worry about making it perfect right as you're building it. Okay, so what's happening down here? Well, I should probably move this down here and sort of, there we go. Something kind of like that. Let's adjust this handle. And see how the fact that I've got very few points to work with is really making this easier. If I had a whole bunch of points, it would be tough to really get this nice curve going. So I'll come here, point. There we go. And let's shorten this one, see if we can make that happen. If I can actually click on that handle. There we go. Like there, and then about there. Once again, let's click on the handle. Okay. I have to shorten this one a bit more here. Okay, So that's a pretty decent banana shape, kind of nice and curvy. It does the job. You know, we can adjust it a little bit here, but yeah, so that's pretty good shape right there. So let's just swap the fill and the stroke here, and to give it maybe a bit of a better color, I can even pick a color right here from the photo. So if I get my eyedropper tool, I can pick a nice yellow. There we go. So we have a good shape here starting out, and you know, pretty good banana shape, pretty accurate to the image. And so the idea is that you want to have you know, the gradient mesh grid lines and intersection points to be able to make your curves and all this stuff happen here. So you've built the shape, and the next thing is you can go here to the mesh tool, which is right here. And if you click in here, you would convert this simple path to a mesh shape. So if I click in here, kind of thinking about the banana shape itself, I'll click there. Okay, there's one set of lines. And if I come in here, I can click right here. There's another set. If I click actually on an existing line, it's not going to make a whole new set. It'll just make ones that cross. So if I come over here and click on this one line, and I've got that one crossing line. And so we go something like this. Okay, so now I've got mesh points here. But there's a problem with this. And initially, when I started out using this tool, this is what I thought you would have done. You would have taken you know, built your shape to be exact, and then made it a mesh by using the mesh tool. But we've got some problems here. One is, if you look at the shape of the banana, you want to have, this is where you want your line to go, because your lines are going to create this edge, that mesh line all the way up. And so you'd want one that really travels from one end of the banana all the way down to the other. If I look at my shape, it doesn't do that. They don't go up here, and there's no real way to control this. I mean, if I take and I move that, I can sort of do that, but now you see I'm messing up the outer shape. So there's a kind of a problem, and I can't really put these shapes where I want them to go. If I were to take this whole shape here and just reduce the opacity so I can see through it, there we go. And I can do a little bit of building, which is sort of what you want to do. Notice as I zoom in here, well, I mean, I can take and move these paths and these points, and I can put them places. But again, I can't move this one over here. There's a bit of a problem. I mean, you know, I guess I could do that, and then I could do that, but now I've got a problem right here. Can I rebuild it that way? So, whoops, that didn't quite work. So you can see I'm kind of fighting this thing here, and it just doesn't really want to do what I want. And look, as I click and put these new paths here, I get these lines that are really kind of acting a bit weird. And I've got to come in here and adjust these handles here and try and straighten them up. So I'm really fighting this to try and get these to be where I want to go. I can move these along here just fine, but again, I'm kind of at a loss. What am I going to do about this thing? And there's a real problem right here as well. And that is that this path here for the mesh has actually gone outside of the overall shape. This is a real problem. So how am I going to get, okay, well, let's do, okay. So you can see that gives me a really not a great line at all. Just tough to do much with that. If I try and really control this here, weird things start happening. There's this weird kink. Okay, can I push that now? I can't get rid of that kink no matter what. It's got that weird kink there. And this is going to give like a ridge that you don't want. So this is just not the way to do it. And so I was kind of surprised at that this just doesn't really work at all to make a shape. You want to start out with something that is really, really simple, like basically a rectangle or an oval, and work from there. So since this really just will not do to try and make this banana here, it's just, you know, the sort of latitude and longitude lines of the mesh aren't conforming to what I need. This is just not going to work. So I'll delete this layer and show you a better way to go about this. Now this really isn't going to be a gradient mesh tutorial because there are a lot of good ones out there on the internet already. But just kind of to show you why you go about this process and how it's helpful and why you wouldn't want to do what might come more naturally, which is build the shape first. So I would start off here with a rectangle. And I'm going to think of this banana sort of as it was stretched out into a rectangle, and so do something like that. Okay, there's the rectangle. And then now, of course, you're going to want to take it and try and adjust it so it sort of fits into the place where the banana is. And what I want to think of is, well, I mean, that if the banana were pulled out flat, I'm going to want sort of latitude and longitude lines going all the way across here. And we don't quite have that yet, but I can sort of do something like this. Okay, so starting with a rectangle. Here's my rectangle. So now, just a normal rectangle, nothing unusual here. Doesn't easily conform to the shape of the banana. But before we do anything, really I'm going to start with a rectangle and then get the mesh tool and come here to the center or somewhere near the center and click. And what you see is that I've got this perfect dividing of the box or the rectangle into quadrants. And I've got this vertical line going all the way from the top all the way down here to the bottom. And that's what I need to have. And this line that crosses is a lot smoother. So this is what you need to have. You need to be able to create lines that go all the way from the top to the bottom, which can be hard with a curved object, unless you do it this way. So once you've done this, now it's a mesh shape, you want to start adjusting it. So if I just take the whole thing and reduce its opacity, so I can see through it there. Actually, it looks like I reduced the opacity of just one point there, which I didn't really want to do. Let's see if I can just do this here. All right. Let's take the opacity of the whole thing down. There we go. Works a little better. Okay, so you're going to get your direct select tool and click on these points here. Oh, looks like I went back too far. Hold on here. Let's make this a mesh shape. One undo too far. There we go. There's the mesh shape. Okay, so there we go. So now with the direct select tool, I can take this and kind of sculpt it in place. Now, if I need this line running all the way from the bottom of the banana to the top, I want to have this part be the bottom and this part here be the top. So as I pull these lines here, notice that they automatically are turning into curves, which isn't really what you want. So I'm just going to pull these edges out and to try and match the shape of the banana here. That's what I'm looking for. And pull this up here. While I'm doing this, the important thing is to not let any of these lines cross. You don't want these lines to cross each other. You want to keep them all kind of separate. Get that handle there. There we go. So before you're really thinking anything about color or anything like that, you really are sculpting your shape. And it's not too hard actually. As I'm doing this, and you see I didn't include the stem because I figured that would be something that would be easy enough or easier to do as a separate shape. So see, as I'm kind of adjusting all these little points here, adjusting this, I'm going to point these where I want to go. And if you get these points really close together, you have to get their handles really, really short, kind of pull them in. So I'm going to pull this here. Let's pull that down there. Whoops. Once again, get the handle. There we go. So it's really just about like building it with the pen tool because you are using Bezier curves that are controlled by handles. But since you made it start off with a rectangle, and then before you do any kind of sculpting or curve building like this, you make it a gradient mesh. Now you can see what happens is I've got this line here really right where I need it to be. So I can put this line that goes all the way from the top of that banana, and let's move across here like that. There we go, down to the bottom. And it takes really, okay, once again the handle, it takes really about the same amount of time, and the techniques you need really are the same. So I'll zoom in here a little bit tighter and kind of fine tune these. But this is what you're looking for, is you got to get it to a point where it's like this. Let's do that. There we go. You got to get to a point where it is like this, and you have the lines matching up where you want them to go. Imagine if you took this banana and just drew sort of a grid line on it, like latitude and longitude across a globe. Where would they go? Well, that's really what you're trying to express here with the gradient mesh. So that's pretty good. I'll pop that in there a little bit. It's wanting to snap, so I'm going to go to my view and turn off snap to point and see if I can put it a little better there. Okay. All right. So that's my basic banana shape, right? And it's looking good. That'll do the job certainly. There we go. And you can see that now I still only have it divided to quadrants, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. I've got this middle line here and this sort of transverse one here. So I've taken that rectangle, which is divided into quadrants by putting the one mesh point in the middle, and I've sculpted it to match the shape that I'm using, in this case the banana. Now when you add points, you've got this basis here that is going to act as a foundation for your other points. So let me show you an example. If I get my mesh tool and I click to add a point here that kind of crosses right around here, I'll go in there and click. I get a much nicer point happening there. And I'll put one, say, up here like that, maybe around here. There we go. And yeah, so now the big thing is going to be what happens if I put one here and put one that's sort of parallel to this one. Let's click right there and see. Ah, look at that. Nice. That's nice and clean. Nothing crossing over, and it's giving just exactly what I want. Now here's, as you're kind of wondering where are you going to put these lines as you're sculpting out your banana, and it looks like I didn't quite hit on that one. I got two right there. Let me undo that one and click right here. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so as you're building something like this, more than likely what you're going to do is as an object turns away, it gets darker. It gets shadows, especially as it contacts a surface. It gets ambient shadows because light is occluded along here. And so probably going to need more lines along an edge where you can have more of a color change and fewer lines in the middle where there's less of a color change. So I would come along here and put one right along here. There we go. And so now this line is going to help me build up that edge. And maybe another set kind of along here, like this. Okay, and I can of course add more as I need to, but now I've got this basic shape built, and I can take that opacity and back up to 100%, so it covers up my image. But as I'm working on this, I actually find it handy to have another photo, and I'll kind of move this behind here like that, to have another photo. I've just duplicated my photo layer so that I can move that along and now have something to look at here. So let's kind of see how you go about just making this this happen. I'll just move this one photo up a bit. So now I've got sort of a reference there. So I'm clicking on my shape right here, my mesh shape, and I'll get the direct select tool, and that's easy enough to kind of change things. And so let's just kind of start building things here. Now, because this sort of edge where it turns a corner, it's got kind of almost like a hard line there. What that means is that I want to pull these lines a little closer together. So the sharper your color change is, and the more abrupt, the closer together you're going to want to have those lines. And so look at this. It gets really kind of sharp right there. So I might take this one and sort of move it over and sort of taper that in like that. Okay, so now what I can do is I can just get here and start clicking on a point and then grabbing a color. So if I grab a color from here, I can get the eyedropper and just sort of click there. So I've now changed that color from that one point. And as I go along here, I'll just get, say, this point right here. Hold down I for the eyedropper and sort of click right about there in the same position. So now I'm getting that nice, color going. Let's try this one right here. Again, hold down the eyedropper and sort of get this one right here. So it's okay to pick colors directly from the photo. It's kind of an easy way to start out. Now let's look at this bottom part here, where I've got a bit of kind of a shadow as it's going here, contacting the surface. So if I say, let's click this, that point right there, and I can pull out a color from that, and then so let's get this point right here, and I'll pull out a little darker color along here. There we go. And sort of work my way up. You can see that there's kind of something happening right in here, where I might take this line and sort of move that like that, and this one and kind of pull that in there. Again, you want to have, as usually speaking, you want to have as kind of soft and sort of subtle a change as you can get. So if I see something kind of weird like this, I'm going to zoom in really tight. Sometimes you have to do that, and take these handles and pull them together. Generally speaking, you don't want the handles from two points next to each other to kind of cross and touch over. I want to kind of keep them in their own little space here. And you can see that as I'm doing this, it's adding a nice bit of color to this. So let's continue along, say with this point. I might pull like a color from right there, and then from this point right here, I'll pull a color from right there. There we go. And to kind of see what's going on, you want to click off your shape, and you can see what's happening there. In fact, I might even turn off this bottom layer. There we go, so I can kind of see that. And this is where you get a lot of really good stuff happening, as you can control this gradient, how the colors fade into each other by this by the mesh. And so if I need to have a bit more happening right here, there's I don't have any kind of point where I can add more color. So I think what I want to do with this is I'll get my my mesh tool, and I'll try and add another point right along here. There we go. And so now with that, I'll take this point right here. Remember, every point can have its own color. So if I get this, I can sort of click right there. I'll put a little darker color right there. And now let's maybe take this point right here that I added, and with eyedropper, get a little darker color right around there. There we go. So now I'm kind of bringing in, a little more depth of color right in here. And if I feel like, I'd like this lighter color to happen right here, well, that means I could use another point. So get this mesh tool, kind of click right in there. Again, look how nicely it is that follows along, kind of parallel to the other curved lines. So if I click this here, and I take this nice kind of lighter yellow color right in there, there we go. I'm kind of bringing that in. And so to get a bit of this edge, I'd want to, come right here and kind of pick a little bit of this kind of darker yellow right there along that edge. And then I may even want to have a lighter yellow color along here somewhere. So as I want to try and sculpt this edge, I'm going to come in here and look and see, we've got some overlapping stuff we don't want. So again, take this handle and pull it back there, and take that one and pull it in there. So you don't want to have the handles overlapping. But notice as I bring these two together, just kind of how sharp that line can look. And so the closer together I bring them, the more I can take that line there and make it less less subtle and soft, and more of a definite change in color. So kind of pull these together here. We'll zoom out. Right now, there's a really kind of bright, very light yellow happening right in here. So things to me that tells me I might want to have another point right along in here, so I can change that. So again, get the mesh tool. I'll click right along this line. There we go. And so now with that one, with that point selected, I get this very bright yellow right in there, and I can start bringing that up as well. If I click here, and again, get that kind of bright yellow right along there. As you click on each point, you can see the color that that point is right here in your fill. That's where you're going to see that. So if I click down here to this one, I can see it's a darker orangey yellow. If I click to this one, it's a little bit lighter. The really brighter one is right along here. Now to kind of give this a bit of an edge and make it look not quite so flat, I can click this point here and try and just darken it up a little bit. So if I don't want to just grab here from the photo, once I've clicked on a point, I'm actually not going to use RGB because that doesn't really work. We'll just do a hue saturation value. And now I can maybe kind of take that and darken that line up there a little bit. There we go. So I've kind of given a bit of an edge right there. But that's really all you need to know. You just kind of keep building it up from there. But see, once again, take a look at how these grid lines are coming together. And the truth is, I might need to put a few more in. But notice in areas where I've got, very subtle or sort of slow shifts in color, I don't have very many points at all. So you can take this, space right here, and you've got a very subtle shift of color. In places where you're going to have, sort of turn a corner or have a definite change, they're closer together. So as I'm building this, you can see it's sort of turning into like that sort of grid pattern of latitude and longitude going across the banana here. But you're not going to be able to make it work like this if you don't start off with a basic shape like that rectangle and then put a grid or a gradient mesh point in the middle first and then start sculpting it. So now every line that I add is going to follow along with this profile, with this curve, and that's going to be what I'm looking for. So that's something that when I first started off using the gradient mesh tool, I didn't quite get that. I thought I would build the actual shape and make it exact as possible as the outline and profile, and then start adding mesh points. And that just doesn't work. You're just going to be fighting and fighting the natural tendency of where those mesh points are going to go, and it's just not going to work for you. So this is the way to go. Just kind of some thoughts about how to approach a project like this, and how to kind of plan it out beforehand. And this is a very powerful tool, but if you're not used to it, it can be kind of frustrating and non-intuitive. So that's why we're talking about these concepts right here to help you in building this shape. If you want to do more complex stuff or see how far you can go with the gradient mesh tool, there are lots of great tutorials out there that you can watch with good stuff on there. But these are some real basics, some foundation ideas, some concept to keep in mind first, that if you start with this, it'll be a lot better and a lot less frustrating for you. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for more.